Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for your interest in our international business and your time today. I'm really excited to have this opportunity to explain and provide some of the insights into the current business that we have, our growth strategy, and also some of our future plans. And I hope by the end of the presentation that you'll be actually as excited as I am about the potential that we have within our international markets. I'd like to start this part of the presentation first by giving a quick overview of the current international businesses that we have. And to support our international customers, we do have a number of established businesses already, the largest of which are in our home countries of both the United States and Australia. Our largest presence outside the UK is in the US, where we specialise in the manufacture of robotic, survivability and maritime products. Jeff Yorts, as Steve said, will describe these capabilities later. Within the international business portfolio, our largest presence is in Australia, where we currently provide a range of professional engineering and advisory services to the Australian government, and Greg will talk and provide an insight into the Australian business after this. Other subsidiaries and businesses that we have include QinetiQ Target Services. This is a threat representation and target systems business that we acquired from Meggitt in 2016. I would specifically talk to the performance of that business since acquisition. We also have Commerce Decisions. Commerce is a customer bid-side business that through advice and software products such as Award help customers manage their procurement activities to a high degree of probity. So these are products, for example, that are used in many major procurement programs such as the London 2012 Olympics. OptiSense is our fibre optic distributed acoustic sensing technology used for a range of both security and also energy, oil and gas specific sectors. And soon to be added, we have EIS Aircraft Operations. This is a German aerial training business that we are in the final stages of closing. I will again provide more details of EIS in a few minutes. As well as driving organic growth from these established businesses, we have a number of smaller businesses in Canada and also Sweden, and we're establishing longer term presence in a number of key markets across Asia and the Middle East. Within the Middle East, we have recently established 3 joint venture companies in Qatar, in the United Arab Emirates, and also in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia within the past 12 months. And we see partnerships as being a real key enabler to those markets. And all of these businesses, the joint ventures and the smaller subsidiaries, are going to drive a high level of growth into our plan as we move into those new markets. Not all of our sales with our international customers, however, require that permanent in-country presence. And hence we've also established an export sales team in the UK, and that export sales team focuses, as Steve alluded to, the sale of spare LTPA capacity. So we attract international customers to use the facilities that we've invested and we have here in the UK, but also looking at where we can export products and services into international markets. And we do that through a high degree of collaboration with the UK government, with UK primes, and also within country partners and resellers. So that degree of collaboration and partnership is key to our business. To provide the focus, leadership and drive that we need to realise these aspirations, we've established an international leadership team here in the UK, and across our subsidiaries, across that team and across our joint ventures, we've got defence and security related experience that runs into many hundreds of years. From a group level down, we have an international by design principle that we've embraced, and so for example things like our transformation programme, our M&A activities, talent management, resourcing, just to name a few examples, all of these initiatives have got really distinct international priorities. When we consider how we take these capabilities, our capabilities into new markets, it's useful to think about our customers as those that either have a requirement to modernise their existing capabilities or develop new capabilities from scratch. Most of our Five Eyes nations and Western customers already have test evaluation and training capability, but are looking to invest in the modernisation of these capabilities, both to test against 5th generation latest platforms and technologies that they may be acquiring, but also to create the environments and the capability to train and test against the most complex threat environments that they're going to face. And QinetiQ, ideally, through its experience in the LTPA in the UK, is ideally placed to support the modernisation of those customers. Other customers, typically in regions like the Middle East and Asia, they've traditionally relied on procurement of platforms to create capability. They're now starting to recognise that they need to have better capabilities themselves of integrating systems, of training and effectively to achieve optimum operational readiness. These customers typically require the advice and support that QinetiQ can offer as an independent customer friend to develop those capabilities, and see us being our independence from UK primes in the supply chain as being a real key partner in achieving that goal. It's this ability for us to both serve customers that want to modernise capability and also establish capability that really creates what I think is a really unique value proposition that we have for customers in these markets. When we start to look at those actual markets and the ones that we could expand into, I think one thing's very clear. We're not short of opportunity. When you look at the size of the global market and our market share internationally, there's a lot of opportunity for us to expand. So to that end, we need to focus. And we've developed a strategy that really focuses our efforts on a specific number of core regions and markets. In terms of regional focus, our efforts are largely on North America, Europe, Asia and Middle East. And we've consciously decided that we will not invest time and effort proactively building organic businesses or pursuing M&A activity in Latin America and Africa. Where we do secure work in these markets, it will be purely on an opportunistic and a reactive basis. Within our targeted regions, we've prioritised 4 countries as being our Tier 1 priority markets, these countries being Australia, Germany, Saudi Arabia and the United States. And we've done that according to a range of both market and customer criteria. As a result, our strategic priorities, our investment decisions, our acquisition activities, these types of things will naturally be aligned to these priority markets. In addition to these 4 countries, we've identified a number of Tier 2 and Tier 3 markets that include countries such as Qatar, Canada, UAE and Sweden, where we already have presence. These countries reflect markets where we either have strong government-to-government alignment and support or existing export sales opportunities and customer relationships that will lead to larger and more permanent presence in the future. I think at this point in time it would be a good sort of opportunity to explain how we take a business that's largely UK-centric into international markets. And it's fair to say QinetiQ's capabilities in the UK have largely been established as a result of many decades of UK government and private investment. And replicating the capabilities that we have in the UK in international markets is therefore something that's going to require careful consideration. It's going to require time, planning, investment and patience. The LTPA business model is not something that we can recreate overnight in in these other countries. So typically what we are doing is we seed our presence in new markets through export sales. These sales provide us the opportunity to build new customer relationships, create brand awareness and a reputation as QinetiQ as a technology innovator. Once our capabilities become understood, customers understand our values and our brand, and they recognise the unique support that we can provide them, we typically open doors then to become more of an independent engineering advisory services provider or customer friend. You know, this is where they want to really sort of leverage some of the expertise and experiences that we have through the work that we have done in the UK. This sort of position allows us to typically become intimate with their customer, their concerns, their challenges, their future requirements, and to start to introduce some of our test evaluation training and rehearsal capabilities. As these relationships deepen, QinetiQ naturally have the opportunity to move into more of a mature research development, test evaluation, modernisation business models that may require some degree of permanent in-country presence and or investment. And over time, all of these building blocks allow us to create our vision and deliver our proposition of integrated capability generation and assurance. From an organic perspective, this is naturally going to take time. So what we are doing through this journey is looking at how we can look at accelerate this through partnerships, through joint ventures, through acquisitions, and how we can leverage government-to-government relationships in areas of test evaluation, research, development, training and rehearsal. What I have on the next slide here is an example of where some of our current businesses sit in this market penetration model. And I'm going to be talking to some of these countries later, but you can clearly see that we're at different stages of maturity in each of these markets, but we have a clear line of sight over time of how we can enhance our position up this value model towards our ultimate goal of integrated capability generation and assurance. I'd now like to talk briefly to Canada. Canada is a good example of where we're working with our customer to modernise their capabilities. Canada is a really attractive market for us given defence spending growth, the presence that we already have in Canada that we can leverage, and the support that the Canadian Department of National Defence require from companies like QinetiQ to push through their planned procurement programs. Today our capabilities in Canada are split in two places. We have a product manufacturing an export business sitting under our QinetiQ Target Systems based in Medicine Hat in Alberta. Ironically, this is where we manufacture and design all of our maritime products, and we're about 2,000 kilometres from the coast, but it's actually a very successful export business. And we also have our Ottawa-based advisory business that's built up a strong reputation with the Canadian Coast Guard and also the Royal Canadian Navy. Moving forwards in Canada, we've got quite an interesting range of both product, advisory, service, outsourcing and modernisation opportunities, all of which we're developing simultaneously. A large number of those opportunities really being driven through the expertise that our Canadian customer recognises we can bring them through the work that we do within the UK. Qatar is a good example of where we're building and working with our partner and the customer to develop an indigenous defence capability from scratch. In 2017, we signed a joint venture agreement with Barzan Holdings, Barzan Holdings being the investment arm of the Qatar Ministry of Defence, and we subsequently jointly incorporated a company called BQ Solutions. BQ Solutions is specifically tasked with providing the Qatar Ministry of Defence advisory services related to complex procurement programs, research and development, and in-country test and evaluation capability. Since incorporating the JV in October last year, this is less than 12 months, we have already secured through the joint venture $30 million worth of contracts. We already have 25 employees in country, and we're conducting work in both land, maritime and air domains in 3 different countries. So the JV is already recruited, as in the process of developing local Qatari employees, and we've got a really exciting portfolio of opportunities which are going to become long-term building blocks towards the creation of a Qatari capability generation and assurance partner for their MOD. Qatar may not be one of the biggest defence markets in the world, but our unique positioning with Barzan Holdings creates a really unparalleled route to the market and an opportunity to really quickly accelerate our path up that previous market penetration model. At this stage, I'd like to also provide you a quick update of where we are in relation to QTS. QTS, the world's largest target product and services provider that we acquired back in 2016. QTS provide a wide range of both land, surface, maritime and aerial targets that are used both for live fire training and also weapon systems test and evaluation purposes. The business filled a real gap in our test and evaluation offering in the terms of being able to provide us with threat representation. And the business has created a number of exciting channels to new markets internationally that we are looking at exploiting for the broader range of QinetiQ's products and services. Over 90% of QTS revenues are with international customers, and they currently sell to over 40 different countries. Since the acquisition of QTS back in 2016, progress of the business has surpassed our expectations, with all financial metrics ahead of our acquisition case. We've really embraced the agile, innovative product development capabilities within QTS and have pushed forward since acquisition with 2 major investments. One of these is a project to significantly enhance the performance of their existing aerial targets, the Jet Banshee. The second is the development of an air-launched supersonic target, which is going to be known as Rattler, and which we launched earlier this year. That's going to replicate the latest high-dive sea skimming, anti-radiation missile threats that you would typically see from China and Russia. We're really excited to release Rattler early next year commercially, and we've already got significant interest from a number of the world's largest naval forces. Both Rattler and the next version of Banshee provide a significant opportunity for us for growth and really demonstrate what can be achieved when we combine the technical capabilities of QinetiQ with the product commercialisation and routes to market that a company like QTS brings. Business winning performance within QTS has been strong. And since acquisition, we've secured 2 5-year contracts, one with the Dutch Navy and also a 5-year framework agreement with the US Target Management's Office, which now creates a sales channel for us into the largest threat representation and targets market in the world. Not all of QTS products, however, are being manufactured and exported from the UK or Canada. Interestingly, since acquisition, we've started to assemble product in India, and we've now flown our first Indian-made jet Banshee as part of a significant supply agreement and commitment to the Indian Air Force, Navy and Army. And we hope to create similar indigenous capabilities in new markets as and when volumes permit. Looking forward to the rest of this year, and I think one of the most exciting milestones for the business, well, especially for me, has to be the acquisition of EIS aircraft operations in Germany. EIS are a leading provider of mission-critical airborne training services and have an in-house engineering capability that is used to create bespoke training aircraft, specialist products, and also provide special mission aircraft modifications. The acquisition of the business is going through regulatory approval currently, and we hope to complete in the autumn. Revenue growth for the business has historically been strong, and we see significant opportunity to leverage the business both in Germany but also in international markets. EIS will provide us with a number of strategic benefits. First of all, there's natural synergies that EIS will bring us with our existing air engineering, test aircrew training and unmanned target service capabilities that we're going to exploit and further strengthen our position in defence operational training. EIS will also provide us a beachhead into Germany, where we have significant potential to introduce broader QinetiQ offerings and ensure post-Brexit that QinetiQ's got a more meaningful presence and influence in Europe and a role in the future German defence programmes. And even though we're yet to complete the acquisition, we've already identified a number of international opportunities to grow EIS into adjacent European countries, into the Middle East, in some cases through our joint ventures, but also into specific Asian countries where they're looking to establish a similar capability. We also see opportunity for EIS to potentially support business winning and operational activities in the UK. So EIS will be a very thought through, strategic and considered addition to the international business. I hope that this insight provides a quick overview of what we're currently doing internationally, some of our priority countries and where we're hoping to grow the business, and I hope this has been useful. We have tried to expand internationally before with mixed success. However, I truly believe this time is different. This time we've made the right investments in people, we have the right value proposition, we have a clear focus strategy. We're not trying to be all things to all people, but a really clear focus strategy on a core offering in a small number of target markets. We recognise the value of local partnerships and UK government relations as being critical enablers, and are investing significantly to build those right customer relationships that we require. But I think ultimately what's going to carry us over the line is our unique and unparalleled world-class reputation and experience which customers are increasingly in need of for the modernisation and the development of their own test evaluation and training capabilities. As the leader of the international business, I can assure you that myself, my team and I absolutely committed to set out to achieve the potential we all believe that QinetiQ has in the international defence and security sector. And I'd now like to welcome any questions about this part of the business before we move on to our next section, which is about the Australian market. Thank you.
Hi, it's Richard Page from Numis. Thank you for that. Would you be able to give us a bit more detail about the process by which you find these acquisitions? So maybe the examples of the three, including EIS, you're going through, and the sort of targets you set the businesses in terms of hurdle rates, please.
In terms of how we're identifying acquisitions, well, a key part of that is looking, obviously, in terms of the core markets that we have, you know, looking for acquisitions where we can further strengthen our position within those markets, but companies that really allow us to create those building blocks to deliver the value proposition that we have set for ourselves. So we're certainly not looking for adjacent businesses, we're looking for fundamental building blocks that allow us to create that integrated capability generation assurance offering that we have. And I think the QTS business was a classic example of that in terms of filling the threat representation void, the business in Germany from an aerial training perspective and what they do in terms of aircraft modification, and us being able to leverage that into range modernisation. Again, a fantastic opportunity to create a fundamental building block that allows us to deliver that capability that we want to establish.
I guess also just trying to understand how well you knew the businesses before acquisition, you know, how long you understood the business.
We had worked with Meggitt for many, many years before that acquisition. So, I mean, those types of companies, we actually work with them in many respects as they supply product to us as part of some of our operations within the UK, but also strategically, I mean, we recognise what they could bring to us, and I think it was that opportunity that allowed us to move quickly with a really strategic case, you know, and an offer which, I mean, Steve, would you like to build on that?
Yeah, I mean, I just sort of, you know, add a couple of points really, and we discussed this, you know, with all of our, you know, shareholders and sort of investor opportunities. It's absolutely strategy led. You know, I think that's the real difference that we're driving, you know, through this overall group vision and strategy. You know, we're looking for, you know, selected targets, excuse the pun, you know, where it deliberately adds value within our strategy. So it's not acquisition for acquisition's sake. We have to, you know, not only obviously meet the appropriate financial hurdles, but we have to get that leverage in line with the strategy. So, you know, QTS is a very good example that we often use. So when we're clear on our strategy and the value chain of the company, it was absolutely clear to us that owning the delivery of the target was central to the value proposition of test and evaluation. You know, that brought with it, as Iain expressed, more than 40 customer relationships that QinetiQ previously did not have, and that creates a leverage opportunity to effectively then cross-sell back, you know, into other T&E services, you know, with those countries. So it's where we can get the right selection and then see multiple leverage, you know, in line with the strategy. That's really what's driving our thinking. And it might mean that then we're very, very selective, but then we get the right choice and then ultimately, you know, much better return over time.
Rami Meyerson from Investec. Two questions. Qatar seems like a very interesting market, but has a wide choice of opportunities to choose somebody to partner with. You know, why did they choose QinetiQ rather than somebody else?
So it was very much a pull from the customer or the partner. So the Qatar MOD reached out directly to us, had an early engagement with us in March last year. And they were looking for a partner that could help them build indigenous defence capability, not just in terms of helping them with complex procurement, but also research development, looking at how they could find a partner that could help them even build defence manufacturing capability. And I think what they saw in the UK was they saw in QinetiQ was something quite unique. One, because of our relationship and experience with the UK mod in terms of the, you know, in many respects, the partnering arrangement we already have, you know, with the government customer, but also the independence of QinetiQ. So they were looking for a customer friend. They were looking for someone that could provide them with expert advice that was independent of supply chain and independent of, you know, major platform sales. So they saw us as being that quite unique partner that could bring the technology, the innovation, the experience around things like test and evaluation, but also not somebody that was trying to necessarily sell their own product.
Thanks. And second question, the UK is quite unique in outsourcing a lot of RDT&E and training, and has helped QinetiQ and build the capabilities that it has. When you think about international markets, where do you see the largest appetite to follow a similar path as the UK MOD has followed in allowing the private sector to provide these services?
Well, I think two of the key markets that we're focusing on right now are offering that potential. Australia's already outsourced some of its test and evaluation facilities, and Greg will talk to some of that. We've been operating some of those facilities for over 10 years, and we see that becoming an increasing trend. And also Canada. I think the same, there's an opportunity within Canada as they want to modernise and start looking at getting better commercial value from the historical investments they've made, to follow a similar path as the UK. And I think the Canadians recognise what QinetiQ is able to deliver through that experience that we have with UK MOD, also within the Canadian market.
Thanks.
Iain, if I might add, Rami, I'd also, so if I go to my 5 to 10 year view, I think Ian's named some very near-term opportunities. I think that nature of outsourcing, when other countries start to see, the real digitisation, the real modernisation through the investment that we're putting in, that is coming in through the UK, and then seeing that move into countries like Australia and Canada, I think with our big picture ambition, we will start to see other countries in that timescale start to move there. So I could think, I won't name them, but I could think of other European nations that will have budgetary pressure and that will see state-of-the-art modernisation occurring in some of these near-term countries and will want to follow suit. And I think that that will become, ultimately in our long-term plan, a huge way of building, multiple platforms which are interconnected that will drive, long-term sustainable growth.
If I could give one real example without naming the country, we had a customer visit our facilities here recently that was looking at building their own air range for test and evaluation of UAVs. Their concept when they arrived was very much about runways and concrete buildings. When they left with the concept of mobile test and evaluation capability, integration of maritime, land, air, digitisation, combination of live, virtual, constructive and physical, and they went away with a completely different mindset of what that facility potentially meant and then how they could leverage it commercially. And it was that capability that we have in the UK that now positions us potentially as being that sole source partner for them as they develop that in their own country.
Hi, it's Andrew Gollan from Berenberg. Just to link to the first question, actually, when you come back to target systems, so far you just reported that the business has outperformed the business case. Is that just an illustration, or is that a function of actually that business leveraging within the QinetiQ family, or has it just been a better operating story than you'd anticipated? We're just being conservative.
I'd say it's
so has it started?
It's a combination of things. There's definitely been some value, immediately that QinetiQ's added. But then, clearly they have, I think they've performed well as a business as well. So a combination of the two.
I think, we will grow that business this year. We will grow the business this year, and I think the additional products that were referred to earlier, Rattler and the next generation Jet Banshee, really give the ability to expand the scope of that business in a way that it wasn't able to invest before. So not huge amounts of investment going into that, but enough to really expand the product range and give that a much stronger future growth story.
And I think, sorry, and just another example, the UAE, for example, is a contract that traditionally that business would have pursued by building product in the UK and exporting. We've taken a very different approach to the opportunity in the UAE market by actually using using that requirement for aerial targets as justification to create a joint venture, but then also to build a manufacturing and assembly capability in country. So, we can provide a longer term commitment to our customers, and we create a base that we can then expand out into other QinetiQ product and service offerings. Meggitt in its own right would not have been able to have done that, and would have really struggled, I think, to have got that activity, over the line. Whereas I think a different approach and a different level of commitment allows them to win work that traditionally they might have struggled with.
So if I might, I talked about leverage. We've just talked about 3, if not 4, points of leverage through that acquisition. So first of all, David's just referred to investment, because we could see the channel to market, we were using investment as leverage. Iain's just described our wider marketing and sales capability and the choice that we've approached to put a joint venture in one particular country, but we've got other approaches with some of our target services. We've got technical skills and technology leverage. So in some of the future projects, some of the existing projects, we're using skills and capabilities which are in the rest of the group that QTS did not have. And all of those three levers around the existing perimeter of target systems and services, and then add on the fourth lever, that it's an integral component of the value chain of test and evaluation, and then we start to build real credibility, real relationships at a larger scale that we can then say, well, okay, how about your range? Let's talk about the modernisation of capability X, Y, Z. So it's that sort of thought process, going right back to Richard's comment, that actually led us to selecting that business, and then it's using those and it's a good performing business. It's performed well, yes, but we're also contributing those levers within the overall performance that you're seeing.
Sorry, just one other one. The addressable market, it's quite hard to define. Competition is hard to define. Just for our benefit, really, presumably, when you look at these target markets, tier ones, tier twos, every end market is different, right? So, how do you prioritize what and how you approach these opportunities? Because these are opportunities that we're struggling to define ourselves, I think.
So I think that in some respects, the size of the market is a little bit irrelevant. I think it's about how we can make impact. And I think that impact comes through the relationships where we can exploit government-to-government support, where we've got a customer that actually understands and recognises our value proposition, sees the real things that we can provide them in terms of, they're interested in technology and innovation, and those are the types of capabilities that we can bring to the table. So I think it's largely about relationships. It's about it's about a willingness and an understanding to embark on the types of journeys that we have towards building that proposition. There are large markets that are competitive, where customers don't want necessarily the technology or the innovation, but they want minimum capability at a lowest price. That's not the sort of market necessarily we're going to focus on. So I think it's about just making sure we've got the right relationships in the right market with the right customer that just aligns with our values and what we think we need to accelerate our progress as quickly as we can.
I think we'll do one more question on this section.
Okay.
Move on to Graham.
So,
when you talk about modernization for the Five Eyes, how much modernizing do they need to do? And are you comparing it against China and Russia? What's the benchmark for getting up to speed?
So many of these nations, they're using facilities that haven't been upgraded for 40, 50 years. So when you talk about fifth generation platforms and you talk about electronic warfare and these types of capabilities, they're just not equipped to be able to test or train against some of those threats. So just because they're Western nations or Five Eyes countries does not mean that they have world-class capabilities like we have in the UK. Okay, thank you very much.